So this video, I want to take you through a bit of an introduction into who I am and what got me to the position that I'm now in nutrition, because it's been a tricky journey and it's probably not one that you would probably expect from somebody who's in the industry. So let's get into it. So my background is actually in boxing. I've got a massive background in boxing. I was an amateur boxer from the age of 11 years of age. I turned professional at 23 or 24, I think. And I worked my way through, became a personal trainer, and now I'm a nutritionist qualified in advanced nutrition science. So how did that all come about? It's quite an interesting journey, really. I think it's really important for people, kind of landed on this channel to kind of get a bit of a background. So I started amateur boxing at 11 years of age, and looking back now, I think that's probably where things started for me in terms of my breakdown with the relationship with food. I started boxing at a very young age. So from a very young age, I always had to make a weight. I always had to be aware of the scales, and I always had to just be aware of body composition from a very early age. I think that's probably where it started in the amateurs and what started to shape me moving forwards. But where things really started to turn for me was when I turned professional. Now, I turned professional about 23, 24. Now, when you start professional boxing, your matches are agreed between your manager and another manager and their fighter. So you have a specific weight you have to hit for every fight. So it is the same in the amateurs, but it's a bit looser. With you being kids, there's a bit more given, a bit more leeway. So with professional boxing, you are penciled in to be a certain weight. You have to be that weight. Now, for me, I was working towards being 9 stone 4. So, to give you a bit of an insight in where I'm currently at now, I'm about 11 stone 4. Fluctuate between 11 stone 2, 11 stone 4, maybe a touch higher at some parts of the month. But for me, that was a really low weight to hit. And to do that, it was quite difficult for me. And again, I think that's where things changed for me in terms of really start to ramp up with my poor relationship with food and how I used to go about food. And to make that weight, I just used to do some incredibly stupid things. And back when I was professional, social media was a little bit of a thing then. It wasn't massive. So you just kind of took advice off people in gyms, people in the boxing gym. You'd take advice out of magazines. Back then you'd look at a little bit of social media. So you'll see bits and pieces on there. But it was just it was really big area of misinformation back then. And again, you still see it in the industry today, but back then there was nobody I knew or nobody I kind of followed who were evidence-based and could give you, the information that I needed back then. So to try and make weight, I used to do some crazy things. Like I'll be doing all kinds of diets. I'll be doing, I'll be doing fasting. I'll be trying keto, all of them. I've tried them all because you're so desperate when you're a professional athlete to make the weight you need to be. You just don't question anything. You just want to be that weight and you think nothing of it whatsoever. And without knowing, I got myself into a really disordered eating pattern, and it got really bad. And I'll talk about this in a second, but it got really bad. I was doing some really stupid things to make weight. I was cutting out complete food groups. I was basically starving myself a lot of the time to points where I felt so restricted. I was binge eating in the evening. I was blowing out to like incredible degrees. Now you might be watching this thinking, oh yeah, sometimes I have a bit of a binge out. This was to ridiculous levels, which I'll probably do more videos on later on, throughout the videos I post here. But it was to unbelievable levels, which you would even shock you. You'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe you used to do that. Well, I did. And it was all through a bad relationship with food, built through restriction, built through not understanding nutrition, and just built through dieting and just being thrown on what I call the diet cycle. I just couldn't get off it, and I had no understanding of it. And it took me... it's probably like a couple of fights before the end of my career, and where it really kind of come home to me was it was a Sunday night. I remember it. It was a Sunday night, and I was going back into training camp the next Monday, and it was like my last kind of day of a couple of weeks off I'd had from training since my last fight. And it was a Sunday evening. I'd eaten to unbelievable levels because in my head I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be on back on my diet tomorrow, so I've got to like enjoy myself. And I got to a point where I felt so sick that I found myself upstairs in the toilet. I was like, God, I'm going to be sick in a minute. Maybe if I just like put my fingers down my throat and make myself sick, maybe that'll help me. And it was at that moment then, and like looking back now, I'm like, wow, I can't believe it. It was like that moment then when I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is not a position you need to be in. And the most interesting thing about this, now I'm not trying to say I had an eating disorder. I'm not trying to say that whatsoever. Eating disorders are very specific. They're a serious, serious issue. I'm not saying I was there, but I was fast pushing into an area I didn't want to be through disordered eating. And the interesting bit about this was, it's not like I shouldn't have known what I was doing at that point. I was a qualified personal trainer at that point. I'd been through personal training awards. I'd been through nutrition and weight management qualifications. So I was in a position where I was like, I should know all this, and I don't. I haven't got a clue. Anyway, we'll talk about qualifications maybe in another video, but ultimately got to a position where I knew there was an issue, and a couple of fights later, I ended up retiring from professional boxing. I had a big disordered eating pattern with food, to a point where one of my good friends flagged this and was like, mate, this isn't right. There's something not right here. And I knew kind of towards the back end of my career, there was something not right, but ultimately you just carry on because you're just like, whatever, I'm a professional boxer, I just need to do what I need to do. And you just don't pay any attention to it. Once the box had finished, it was when my good friend, and I knew anyway, I kind of knew deep down, but my friend was like, mate, you've got to be, like, there's an issue here. Like, what you do with food is not right. I would like literally feast and famine. I'd restrict, and then I'd just completely blow out when I couldn't take any more. I used to really balloon up and down with my weight. Like after a fight, I could put like 3.5 stone on easily. It was incredible. Anyway, long story short, I went and got some help with my eating. I went and got help with that. Took some help, got through that, and it was a long process. It wasn't easy. It took me a long time to get to where I am now. But I got through that, and I opened my own PT studio. It's qualified PT, opened my own PT studio. And that was the point where you may be watching this thinking, well, professional athlete, how does that kind of translate to, working with general public? This was really interesting because I opened the PT studio and people were coming to me for fat loss. Like, I want to train, I want to lose weight. And which is great, no problem. The personal training sessions were fantastic. Some people were training once, twice, 3 times a week with me and trying to lose weight. And it got to a point with me where I was like, they're spending 1, 2, 3 hours a week with me, and we're trying to outwork their nutrition here. We need to do more with their nutrition. And I just got really, really in depth with the nutrition side of it. I had a massive passion for it through my own issues. And then I started to see the same issues in terms of what I'd kind of felt, and that kind of on and off dieting, good and bad food, feast and famine, restriction, and then not being able to take that anymore and blowing out. I saw the same patterns in people I was working with in the general public. So I was like, I need to be better with nutrition. So I went off and I qualified in advanced nutrition science, which I hold my qualification in now. And this allowed me then to work deeper in nutrition. And I'll be honest with you, it was a big turning point for me. I closed down the PT studio, and we had a really thriving PT studio. I closed down the PT studio and I was just like, that's gone. I need to open a consultancy just with nutrition only. And again, my passion just kind of really, really bled from the struggles I've been through, and then seeing people starting to struggle with the same issues that I'd been having, or been struggling with the same issues that I had having, being on that diet cycle. And I wanted to do more for them. I get such a passion with genuinely helping people come off that diet cycle. So I went through the qualification, closed down the PT studio, and this is where I now work inside my online nutrition consultancy, where I work specifically in fat loss, weight loss, health. But a big thing that we do, and a key drive to what we do, is changing people's relationship with food. Because until you change your relationship with food, you're never going to have a life with nutrition that you're going to be able to enjoy. And that's the massive thing. What we do inside the consultancy, and my mission now when I work with people, is making sure we get them to a position where they want to be with their fat loss, their body composition, get them healthy, improve their relationship with food, but that we make sure that they never go back through that process again, that we are the last stop that they need when they've lost that body fat. They don't remain on that diet cycle. And that's a big thing for me. And this is what we work with massively now. You're inside the consultancy, we work with a lot of females. We work with a lot of ladies who are going through perimenopause, menopause, post-menopause, all ladies. And ladies who are coming to us who are like, oh my God, I'm really struggling with this phase of my life. I can't lose fat like I used to. What do I do? And again, it's a real passion of mine working in that area. We work very deep in ladies' health in that area. And just working generally in that area of building relationships with food, helping understanding. And we do a lot of myth busting. It's a massive passion for me. There's so much rubbish out there now with the explosion of social media, influencers selling rubbish products and supplements, giving stupid diet advice, coaches in the industry giving stupid diet advice. And what we're doing here inside our consultancy is we're challenging that. We're out there like, no, this is wrong. You're giving this information. It's not backed by science. It's not evidence based. And again, what we do with our clients is we don't we don't kind of smokescreen everything with science and evidence-based practice, but what we do with that is we make it understandable and able so they can apply it to their everyday life and their everyday journey with fat loss, health, and building relationships with food. And that's what we specialize in. And for me, we challenge that industry narrative of misinformation, pseudoscience, quackery. We challenge that because it's the only way to truly move people through nutrition, giving them exactly what they need, giving them exactly where they need to be with their journey with nutrition to get them to a position of improved body composition, happy with their body, and have a great relationship with food that they can sustain for the rest of their life. So if you are somebody who is struggling with your own nutrition or fat loss, or you feel like you're on that diet cycle that I'm speaking about, have a look at the video, have a look in the comment section below this video. I'm going to put a little link into the diet cycle breaker. That is a little quiz that if you take, it'll give you some instant help.